talk about the Odyssey, we must first talk about the fall of Troy. The city burned. For 10 long years, Greeks had fought outside its walls, tens of thousands dead, entire kingdoms exhausted. And in the end, Troy didn't fall because the Greeks were stronger. It fell because one man was smarter. A giant wooden horse sat abandoned outside the city gates, a final gift from the retreating Greeks. The Trojans celebrated. They dragged the horse into the city, drank, sang, and celebrated the end of the war. Then deep in the night, the horse opened. Greek soldiers crawled from inside like shadows. Gates were opened, fires spread through the streets. Within hours, Troy was gone, and the mastermind behind all of this was a king from Ithaca named Odysseus, the most cunning man in Greece. At last the war was over. All he had to do now was sail home. But Odysseus had angered something far more dangerous than mortal kings, the gods. And what should have been a journey of weeks become one of the greatest survival stories of all time. This is the Odyssey. One man versus the gods. As Odysseus and his fleet crossed the sea, they reached an island which seemed peaceful. Too peaceful. The inhabitants offered this man a strange plant, the lotus, an extremely powerful narcotic that erased pain, memory, even purpose itself. Men who had survived 10 years of brutal war suddenly forgot why they ever wanted to go home. Some refused to leave. Odysseus having to drag his own men back to the ship by force. Already the journey home was becoming something much darker, and far worse was yet to come. The next island looked empty. Goats wandered freely, smoke drifted from distant cliffs. Then Odysseus and his men entered a cave, and the owner of the cave came home. A cyclops, Polyphemus, a giant so massive he moved boulders like stones. And worse still, he was the son of the sea god Poseidon. The monster sealed the cave entrance and grabbed 2 men, then ate them alive. Odysseus realized there was no way to fight their way out. Only trickery would prevail. So he offered the giant wine powerful enough to collapse even a monster. And when Polyphemus demanded his name, Odysseus answered, "Nobody." That night, as the Cyclops slept drunk, Odysseus and his men heated up a sharpened wooden stake in the fire and drove it into the monster's eye. The scream shook the island. Other Cyclopses rushed over to see who was attacking him, and Polyphemus roared, "Nobody." Confused, they left him alone. It was a perfect escape. Odysseus and his men fled beneath the bellies of sheep as the blinded giant searched desperately. But then Odysseus made the mistake that doomed his entire journey. As his ship sailed away, he shouted, "Cyclops, if any mortal man ever asked who it was who inflicted upon your eye this shameful blinding, tell them that you were blinded by Odysseus, sacker of cities." He shouted his real name back to the Cyclops. A final boast, a final moment of pride. And Polyphemus lifted his ruined face towards the sky and prayed to his father Poseidon. Never let Odysseus reach home. Poseidon listened. From that moment on, the sea itself turned against him. Odysseus seemed doomed. While Odysseus fought monsters across the sea, his kingdom was collapsing. Back home on Ithaca, years had passed. Most believed their king was dead, and powerful nobles flooded his palace, demanding that Odysseus' wife Penelope choose a new husband. The suitors ate his food, drank his wine, slowly consuming the kingdom from within. But Penelope refused to surrender. Penelope promised, When she finished the funeral shroud for Odysseus, she would take another husband. So every day she worked on the shroud, but every night, in secret, she would unravel it, buying time, holding on to hope that somewhere beyond the sea, Odysseus was still alive. Odysseus reached his next island, of the wind god, Aeolus. Pitying the exhausted king, Aeolus trapped every dangerous storm wind inside a giant leather bag. Only one gentle breeze remained, free to carry the fleet safely home. And finally, Ithaca appeared on the horizon. Home. But after years without rest, Odysseus collapsed asleep. His crew stared at the mysterious bag and greed took over. Believing it contained treasure, they opened it. The trapped storms inside exploded outward. The sea erupted into chaos, and the ships were hurled back across the world. Home vanishing into the distance once again, and things only became worse. The fleet later entered a narrow harbour, surrounded by cliffs. It looked safe, but it was a trap. The Laestrygonians, the giant cannibals, attacked from above. Massive boulders crushed entire ships. The men drowned, screaming beneath shattered wood. Others were dragged away to be eaten. In minutes, 11 ships were destroyed. Only Odysseus escaped. One ship remained. But for how long? The survivors eventually reached the island of Circe, a mysterious sorceress living alone in a hidden palace. She welcomed Odysseus's men with food and wine. Then she transformed them into pigs. Odysseus marched alone to confront her, but along the way, the god Hermes secretly gave him a magical herb to resist her spells. For the first time in centuries, someone resisted Circe's magic, and strangely, she became even more fascinated by him. Odysseus stayed there for another entire year, a year lost to comfort, temptation, and forgetting the journey home, till finally Circe warned him. To reach Ithaca, he must first travel to somewhere no living man should ever go, the underworld. Odysseus sailed to the edge of the world itself, a land without sunlight, without birds, without life. There, the spirits of the dead rose from darkness. Among them was the blind prophet, Tiresias, who delivered a terrifying prophecy. Odysseus would reach home, but only after losing everything. Every ship, every companion, and when he finally returned, he would find enemies waiting inside his house. The next horrors attacked, not with strength, but with temptation. The sirens sang from the rocks ahead. Their voices promised peace, love, and knowledge. Every sailor who heard them willingly sailed to their deaths. But Odysseus wanted to hear the song, so he ordered his crew to block their ears with wax and tie him to the mast. The singing began, and Odysseus lost his mind. Screaming, begging, ordered his men to release him. But they held firm as the ship barely escaped the rocks. Then came the impossible choice. One path led to Charybdis, a colossal whirlpool capable of swallowing entire ships. The other led to Scylla, a six-headed sea monster waiting in the cliffs above. Odysseus chose Scylla because at least the men might have a fighting chance. As the ship passed beneath the rocks, the monster struck. 6 men vanished screaming into the sky, and Odysseus could do nothing but watch. After barely surviving, starving and desperate, Odysseus and his men come across the sun god Helios. Odysseus warned his men never to touch his sacred cattle, but hunger defeated them. While Odysseus slept, his crew slaughtered the cattle. The gods answered. A storm, unlike anything before, descended upon the sea. Lightning shattered the final ship. Every man drowned. Every survivor of Troy was gone, except one. Odysseus. Floating alone across the ocean on a broken wreckage, the king of Ithaca had lost everything. The waves carried Odysseus to the island of Calypso, a sea goddess, a goddess who fell in love with him. She offered him immortality, freedom from pain, freedom from death itself. And for 7 years, Odysseus remained trapped, until finally the gods ordered Calypso to release him. And once again, Odysseus sailed into the sea, still trying to reach home after 20 years. When Odysseus finally reached Ithaca, no one recognized him. The goddess Athena had disguised him as an old beggar. Inside his own palace, the suitors mocked him, insulted him, even beat him, completely unaware they were humiliating the man whose kingdom they were stealing. Then Penelope announced one final challenge. Any man that could string Odysseus's great bow and fire an arrow through 12 axe heads would win her hand. One by one, the suitors failed. The bow would not even bend. Then the old beggar stepped forward. Silence filled the hall. Odysseus strung the bow effortlessly. The arrow fled clean through every axe head, and then he turned towards the suitors. The slaughter that followed became legendary. After 20 years, the king had finally come home. The Odyssey isn't just a story about monsters. It's a story about exhaustion, temptation, pride, loss. Every creature Odysseus encounters represents something deeply human. The desire to give up, the danger of arrogance, the temptation to forget who you are. And through it all, Odysseus kept moving forward, not because he is the strongest man, but because he refuses to stop trying. And thousands of years later, we still remember his name.